If you are an electronic music producer, there most likely will be times when your creativity might feel a little bit stuck. And this happens to me all the time. And a lot of the times that happens to me when I focus too much on the the final result of what I'm trying to make. I'm basically focused on making the best piece of music that I can, with the focus being almost completely on the final result. So as I'm making the music, I'm very much focused on, is this going to sound good? Is this gonna sound great? Is this a piece that I'll be proud of? And is this going to be really, really good? And really kind of trying to make it that, which it's something that is important. I think it's really crucial and an essential part of the creative process to have that mindset. But at times that can also create a block because our attention is so much focused on that final result, where a lot of the magic actually happens in the process. So in particular, this happens every time I release music that I'm really happy with, or there is a little bit more of an external expectation on my music. That's when this pressure kind of starts eating me up a little bit, because I'm thinking, oh, this music just came out. Okay, well, that's the kind of the benchmark, that's the standard. So next time I'm sitting down and I'm trying to make music, it has to be better than that, because otherwise, I can't be moving forward as an artist and I'm making music that is not as good, which is kind of a misguided approach, because the music that you make as an artist going forward, the, it has to improve slowly. So you're thinking of you think of it as a marathon rather than a sprint. It's not about sitting down in 1 week and making three incredible tracks. It's more about making music for a year or 6 months and or maybe 3 months, and with each one trying to create something unique and authentic and honest and something meaningful. And that might mean that some tracks are not as functional. You might tap into different sound. There might be ideas or techniques or kind of frameworks or emotions that get transferred in some tracks that are not in others. So there is an aspect of kind of experimentation in all of them. So for me, that's the only way I can create music. I can't be a factory where I create the same sound consistently, because I get bored of it myself. And as soon as I get bored, that spark goes away. As soon as I need to make, or I'm telling myself to make a lot of the same sound, a lot of the same track. Oh, this track did really well. I need to make more like that track. That just kind of kills my creativity. So I have a challenge, an exercise that I want you to try, because that's an exercise that I've continuously came back over the last couple years to kind of spark up the idea, the importance of the process, the importance of having fun, being engaged deeply into the process itself without that much consideration for the final result. And it's in this weird counterintuitive way that actually focusing on the process, on the creative process of, just making sure that each decision you make, and usually you're sitting there with a mouse, right? So with a mouse, you're sitting there and trying to, like, each decision that you make is just doing something that is interesting, and it doesn't have to have a final result in mind at that stage. You're trying to explore, experiment. You want to discover what the music is in that moment, rather than make it happen a specific way. So yeah, this is kind of the importance of just leaning into the process, because it's the fun, is the engagement, is the interest, the curiosity, the emotion, and the vibe of what's happening in the process and how this thing is developing that gets transferred into the final result. So basically, there's a lot of the times where you might make a piece of music that it just flows. You just tapped into a vibe or a feeling or an idea. It just clicks well. You can hear it kind of developing and it's just kind of happening right in front of your eyes. 2-3 hours go by, the track's finished, and you're like, wow, that was fun. Completely in a flow state, just enjoying that process. Kind of, it's just interesting and challenging enough that you keep going, but it's easy enough that you can smoothly express yourself without kind of hiccups and getting stuck. So it's and that type of thing gets transferred into the music, because music is extremely subjective, elusive, and almost irrational art form. I guess most art forms would be, but music making in particular, where like you might make a piece of music that is just 4 elements that just works so well. Can you rationally and logically explain why that piece of music with just 4 elements in it, spread out over 5 minutes, just works? You can't really. And that's why music is extremely, yeah, that's kind of why it's an art form, why it's so personal, why you can't explain the true magic of a good piece of music or a good piece of art. It's like an intuitive feeling that you feel that you can't explain. So I'm kind of interested by the idea of how do you express, how do you cap no how do you tap into that magic during the process of making music and allow it to be expressed in the sound. So the exercise that I have for you is something I do all the time, which kind of helps me tap into that a little bit. And the exercise basically involves kind of, well, I don't know how many steps it is, but in a nutshell, you take a piece of sound, some sort of audio that means something to you, anything. You put it into your new project of whatever software you use to make music, and you try to experiment and build some piece of music from that. That is it. No expectations, no rules, no structure, just pure experimentation with a piece of music that you already feel connected to. So, and it's kind of, it allows you to tap into that childish, playful, unfiltered creativity. It's kind of that feeling of sitting down to make music for the first time, when maybe it's your first week or first month and you're just exploring like what all the buttons do and what all the plugins and effects do, and you're like, wow, this is, every time you're just making something and you're kind of amazed by it. This exercise allows you to kind of tap into that. And it's not the goal to create this piece of music being incredible. It's purely focused on the process. So it's how, what was the goal is for you to make something and enjoy that process. Work on something that relates to you, something that you have connection to already in some way, emotional or other, that you can kind of build on during the process. And you judge the success of the exercise by your experience during it rather than by the final product. So it doesn't matter what comes out on the other end. It might be a super whack piece of trash that just sounds terrible. But if you've learned something new along the way, and if it sparked some ideas and some interest and a new way that you see or hear the music now, just because you've experimented in a certain way and something just clicked in an unexpected way, that is kind of the point of it, is to experience that magic, that just pure, freely creative sort of mind state. And then once you tap into that, it's like an exercise, you know, It's literally an exercise. So after that, the next project you make, and the one after, and the one after, you will hopefully have learned something from that exercise. There'll be a certain creative muscle or a different perspective of hearing the sound when you're able to express that into the music with hopefully less restrictions, less focused on the final sound, and more engaged in the process of creating it, and how the elements are kind of working together, and how things are developing, and what the vibe is, in a sort of curious way. So yeah, basically find a sound that you can use, and this could be anything. Some of the things I've sampled was like a 1978 psychedelic Japanese folk singer, which was just a beautiful Eastern Asian vocal that just, once I heard it once, I was mesmerized. I was like, wow, this sounds out of this world. And I sampled it right away, put it in lots of my project, worked with it. It was great fun. I've sampled my girlfriend's voice. So one of my tracks that released on Clergy, Amnesia, half of the sounds from that track are my girlfriend's voice, even those that you might not recognize as voice. Um, and recently I've sampled a dinosaur vocalization study. So one of an artist that I have worked with in my coaching project has sent it to me just as a, hey, I think you might like it. And I did indeed like it. I was just, again, taken aback. I was like, whoa, this is what someone anticipated or expects that the dinosaurs sounded like. So it's just weird screeches and like alien-like feral sounds. And I was like, yeah, I've made like 4 or 5 pieces of music just using that as well. Kind of allowing myself to just freely paint with sound, just in a free way, in a creative way, rather than focusing too much on like, oh, I need this synth, the filter envelope, and I need the sequence to this, and then the rules, oh, is in this key, is in that key. I'm just like, this is a super cool sound. I want to put a kick underneath it, a hi-hat, and just make the sound mango in the middle. And the thing is that if you create something that you really like, it will resonate with someone else, because you know that it meets your own taste. You're creating something musically that really, really resonates with you, even if with no rules and no restrictions and no structure. But like it's got like this something in it, this magic that you're like, oh, this sounds really like something. It brings some sort of emotion. It touches you deeply. And if it does happen to you, it will also feel like that to someone else, maybe in a different way, but it's most likely that it will, instead of in comparison to you trying to make something that you're not sure about, but you think someone else will like. And if you do that, you don't really know if it's got that thing or not, because you're looking at through a lens of someone else that you don't actually know. So you pick a sound, whatever it is. It could be a movie monologue, it could be animals, it could be a video on like a quantum physics theory, anything that you can find some sort of audio of it, old jazz, or some whatever you want. How does bacon being fried, ASMR videos, whatever you want, just something that you're interested or intrigued, or something that means to you. Put it in your project and start working with it in a free way. Just start chopping it up, resampling, delays, distortions, put it in sequencers, vocoders, pitch it up and down a million different ways, put a kick on it, make it loopy, don't put a kick on it, make it ambient, drown it in reverb. Just find magic in the process of just creating interesting, cool sounds that you like, and then just build on it and keep exploring that idea. And a track might be born out of it that you will be really proud of, and you'll be like, whoa, this is something, has potential to be something functional, practical. or it might come out completely strange and weird and unstructured, where it's not got potential in itself, but you've learned something along the way, or you have another idea how to do something, or you have learned a specific processing technique, or you hear the music differently because of a certain chain of effects that you applied and it did something to the sound that was unexpected, and then you can use it in your next one. So it's kind of just to, it's an exercise that lets you get more fired up and inspired and tap into that fun and freedom and creativity of the music making process. So yeah, if this sounds helpful and interesting, I genuinely hope you spend, I mean, it could take anything from 15 minutes to a full day to do it, but just try it. It might be 15 minutes, it won't help too much, which I would doubt because it's been super helpful for me. Or you might tap into something really, really useful, and it might spark up your interest in that exercise even more. And if you want to take a look at this in a written format, I write articles on my website, which you can find in the description, where I basically tap into lots of ideas around motivation, creativity, and things like that. So this article, this topic, this exercise is explained on my website. We can read it there. And yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for watching. There will be another one of those. And now I hope you go and make some stuff, make some things, go and explore, have fun.